Get cool stuff for what you were going to do anyway. Drink beer. With Buy Beer, Get Gear from Labatt, you can just snap a photo of your receipt and upload it to the website to rack up points for exclusive merch. Get points for every purchase, whether you're grabbing a pint on draft, a case for a party, or a tall boy at the stadium. Any size, any product, anywhere you buy Labatt. Buy beer, get gear. Sign up now at rewards.labattusa.com.
All right, it's the noise everyone wanted to wait for, and it's me saying that is a wrap on the 2025-26 season for Syracuse men's basketball. Long-awaited finale. We gave Syracuse a puncher's chance after a dwindling finish to the regular season here in the first round of the ACC tournament, and lo and behold, they lose handedly to SMU in the first round of the ACC tournament. 86-69 the final score, and 0-3 the final record in terms of NCAA tournament appearances for, in all likelihood, a soon-to-be terminated head coach in Adrian Autry. Kyle Marshak with you, breaking it all down and trying to put a cherry on top of a very disappointing series or season for Syracuse men's basketball on CuseSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio. Thank you guys for tuning in all year long. 97.7, 101.FM in Syracuse, New York. 96.5 FM out there in Utica, Rome. All of the loyal listeners, and of course those on Twitch and YouTube tuning in on CuseSportsTalk.com. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. And a huge thank you to all of those who've helped out and chugged along with me taking over midseason for Giovanni Heater, who's doing great down there in College Station, Texas. And I guess we kind of turn our heads to what next season could look like for Syracuse. But first, we'll recap the game real quick. And I think it's important to do that because this game is certainly a microcosm of a more expanded issue, which was just problems with this team that never got fixed. And of course, that starts at the top with Autry. I mean, Syracuse, once again, had a strong first half. At halftime, they were only down by a point. And they were closing out on threes, which we knew SMU was going to lean on. They were 3 for 17 from beyond the arc to start things off. And with that, 13 offensive rebounds for SMU in the first half. Nate King, 17 points, 7 of 11 shooting. The zone working in stints in the first half. At halftime, Syracuse was shooting well. Then you go into the second half, and it's the same story we've seen all season. Just a terrible second half with no adjustments that put Syracuse within reach of a win. And so they finish just an awful season where they had the talent to make the NCAA tournament on 6 losses in a row. One of them being at home versus Pitt to finish the regular season. Then they face a team that they beat at home on a neutral setting, and this time they get absolutely blown out, losing by 17 points. So the zone, again, worked in that first half. Didn't see it enough in the second half. And it's just a bad chapter to end a book that looked attractive in the beginning. Syracuse started the season. At one point, they were 12-5, 3-1 in the ACC with no bad losses in the ACC. And then they went on a streak. They lost to Boston College. They finished 15-17, 6-12 in the ACC. On paper, again, I think the main storyline with this is Syracuse at least brought in the most talent that head coach Adrian Autry had in any of his 3 seasons. Donnie Freeman's healthy. He recruits one of the best recruiting classes they've had in a long time. Bringing in Sadiq White, of course, Kai and Anthony. And this is as unceremonious a way you can kind of cement Syracuse's legacy as a team that is no longer just in a brief bad period, but now truly working out of a historic change of perspective on what Syracuse basketball looks like. So we're opening up that conversation. What do you guys want to see in this offseason? I mean, in all likelihood, Red may show signs of having already been booted out or Maybe even in this post-game press conference brought to you by RomanoCars.com, he admits, maybe in Boeheim style, that he's already had a conversation with the university and they will be moving on. Nonetheless, at least within the next 48 hours at most, we will see Autry be terminated. And we need a new AD. We need a new coach. We need a lot of money. Will Syracuse get all of that? And even then, we felt like Syracuse had most of the ingredients to be successful this year, and it didn't work out. So what is next for Syracuse? Call in 315-437-7644 or 315-4-ESPN-44. Because Coach Autry, he was charged with the genetic makeup of this team, and it just did not work out. He had the individual pieces to do it, with Donnie Freeman, an elite scorer, Nate Kings, an elite shooter. Nate George blossomed into a good ball handler, a decent ball handler, I suppose. J.J. Starling only got worse over the years. Really no excuses for this. But finally, we reached the end of the season, and Syracuse can kind of move on. And so I bring it to my final point on what really happened with this season. And there's no excuse for this. I think the ACC preseason poll was very fair. Coaches projected Syracuse to finish 9th in the conference. Had Syracuse finished 9th in the conference, just, by law of transitive property, they would have been at least a bubble team. Because if we look at bracketology right now, there are projected 8 ACC teams to make the tournament. SMU is that last team. They are the 3rd team in. But there are also 3 teams in the first 8 out from the ACC. Virginia Tech is the 3rd team out. Stanford is the 4th team out. California is the 6th team out. So in a world where there's some shuffling on the bubble, and there's always one team, on the first 8 out that sneaks in where people don't expect it, like North Carolina last year, for example. Had Syracuse finished 9th in the ACC, and again, just speaking broadly here, let's say they had the 9th best odds of making the NCAA tournament among ACC teams as a result, they would be in the place of Virginia Tech right now, who had a real or still has a very real shot of making the NCAA tournament. They're about to play in the ACC tournament first round against Wake Forest, a team that I expect them to beat on a neutral setting. So it's entirely disappointing. Again, that's kind of the summation of what went wrong. When you have a very reachable standard of just finishing 9th in the ACC, giving this team a real shot of making the NCAA tournament, at least glancing at it for the first time in 4 years. I mean, come on. There's 11 teams in the ACC right now who have a real shot of the NCAA tournament. For the first time in 3 seasons, the ACC can actually go blow for blow with some of the best conferences in the country. There used to be a pretty big gap between them and the SEC, for example. And I mean, not that it still didn't look like that this year with the SEC-ACC challenge, but my point being, if 11 teams in the ACC had a real shot at the NCAA tournament, why couldn't Syracuse even just be the 11th team? Extremely disappointing. We've got one person pending on the Massage Envy hotline, 315-437-7644. You guys want to call in, talk about a very disappointing way to end the season, 6-game losing streak. And of course, I think by way of tradition, we've got to go to the hotline and get to our first guy who's been calling in all season long. It's Pat in Syracuse. All right, Pat, give me your worst.
All right, so what is your record since you took over for Peter?
Oh, God.
What is your record?
I don't even know. Honestly, let me look back. While you talk, I'll look back. Because it was bad.
We've lost, 8? God, I can't even remember. I want to say you might only have two or three wins under your belt
I've been
since you
talking
took
about
over.
A lot of losses, I can tell you that. So I first co-hosted with Gio for the Virginia Tech game, which, of course, they lost.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah,
what
Virginia
was the
Tech.
record there? Do you have the record there?
Okay, so if we count Virginia Tech, I'll walk you through when I took over. Lost against Virginia Tech, lost against Miami, lost against NC State. So I started on a 3-game losing streak. won against Notre Dame. So now they're 1-3. Then they lost against North Carolina and lost against Virginia. So that's 1-5. They won against Cal, won against SMU. That's 3-5. And then they went on a 6-game losing streak. So that's 3-11. Pretty bad.
That's, hopefully they bring you back.
Yeah. Well,
no, I know I know you're headed to another market, but
yeah.
it was just
a better market, unfortunately.
You've had a tough run of it. So has Syracuse basketball, unfortunately, over the last 5 years. Me and my friends talk about all the times where in late February we were booking hotels and buying tickets and enjoying these tournament games. And, we just hope to get back to that standard. You want to talk about the orange standard? That used to be the standard.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously a lot of things have changed, and it's tough. I mean, this town, this community, sports should bring people together and not divide people. And I just think over the last 5 years, it's just been such a drastic change. And it's really even the 2 or 3 years definitely before that, where Boeheim definitely held on too long for just a ton of reasons. It's just a tough situation. I want to push back on what, obviously you guys have your own show, but right after the game, Hancock was saying that the resources need to improve and this and that, like almost making it sound like, and he did pretty much say, even if you bring another coach in here, things that's not going to be enough to get it done, which is half true, because it can't just be a coach. It has to be a coach that's going to get the support. And, the most important thing that I'm concerned about right now is that the administration and the change in administration and some of the things that have gone on over the last 6 weeks up on the campus, they're pissing off a lot of big-time donors. I have enough people who have a lot bigger pockets than me that are very connected to the situation, and they don't even know each other. And when they're all telling me that, there's got to be a lot of truth to it.
Yeah.
And that's a concern. That's a concern in and of itself. People shouldn't be concerned about a stupid take on the radio and things like that. People should be concerned. Everybody listening and everybody following this program, we all want one thing to be the same. We want success, we want relevancy, and we want all that. Now, we all have our different thoughts and ideas on what went wrong, what we need to do to get it right, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, sports is supposed to bring people together, bring this community together. And I just yearn for those days again. And you've had a tough spot, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse with anything else. That's all I got, man. We'll see what happens.
All right, Pat. Hey, so this is obviously the last show for me here. So I really appreciate you calling in, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you.
Go North Stars, baby.
Yeah, go North Stars. All right, Pat. Take care, brother. Stay warm. All right, that's Pat in Syracuse calling in all season long. I think that about sums things up in the first segment of the Burdick Toyota postgame show. Syracuse, their season finally ends. They lose in the first round of the ACC tournament against SMU. Up next, we begin the conversation of what is next for the Syracuse Orange, and that's next on ESPN Radio. All right, guys, give me your worst. Call in. Let's have some fun. I appreciate Pat calling in. Not woe is me type of guy, but yeah, it was tough taking over, and then immediately they go 3-11. It's kind of crazy. I didn't reflect on that. They literally went 3-11 in the time that I started taking over the shows. So saw you guys talking about, breaking down what went wrong in the game. I feel like that just doesn't matter anymore. I mean, you guys are better at that than I am, right? So that was a rumor, but never anything official. What's up, Mike? Mike, feel free to call in. That was a rumor, but never anything official. Blah, blah, blah. I enjoyed that call. As we know well, had a whopper of a lie earlier today. So I'm assuming the rumor that they already hired. So next, guys, I'm going to be talking about kind of the coaching carousel. So give me like when you arrive in Arkansas. When do I? I leave in 20 days. Damn, I leave in 20 days. Holy crap. Paul and Paul. Yeah, we should have a show for that. Peter Pan and Captain Hook would fit in fine in Arkansas. What will you be doing in Arkansas? I'll be working on TV down there. I don't know what 3 and 8 means. Yeah, we should start covering Siena. We should put them on our airwaves, honestly. Like, at least they're playing for something, you know? But yeah, guys, call in because next thing I'm talking about is the coaching carousel. It was nice having you here just for a bit, my guy. I appreciate it. Gape, you're a good dude. What kind? Zenith, I guess? I don't know what that means. Whereas I was waiting for him to go off in the post-game show. I heard they were doing final interviews this past weekend and early this week. Would be surprised if there's a decision this week, but I don't know about announcement time frame. Good luck down there, Kyle. Seriously, you've got a nice career ahead of you. Great radio voice, great temperament. Oh, sweet.
From the year, obviously, it's pretty fresh right now. But if you could think a little bit more big picture about what the year's.
Player.
Just probably just my motor. Like, you know, a lot of days Coach Red just screaming at me. Some days I don't understand it. You know, some days I'm
We'll take questions for Coach.
Hopefully they can hear it through my mic. No. I mean, I turned my mic up and it's blasting over here.
Mike Waters, Syracuse Post-Standard. Adrian, I was just wondering, like, at any time today, maybe even walking off the court or talking to the guys after the game, did you have any kind of thoughts that the way the season ended and your future personally?
Not as you're preparing for the game and not, during the game. Obviously,
it doesn't matter.
When the game's over with and
So it's just going to go out to the radio. So if you want to talk to them, you can relay what he's saying, but there's nothing we can do about it.
The one thing I'll say is, that with this group in particular, you asked them about the inconsistencies. I think, the one thing is, it was a group that we put together with the hopes being able to work through those things, work through that development to try to be able to develop, on the job, so to speak. And, I think that's where the inconsistencies were, because even some of our older guys that came to play hadn't played a ton at their other places. So, we knew it was going to be a learning curve. But we thought we had a group that could kind of push through that, but that didn't happen the way we wanted to. But yeah, Mike, I think about, as you think about it, you always think about, when the season's over with, about your future, no different than last year. So, I'll have more thoughts again, like I always do. Right when the game's over with, it's a lot of emotions, it's a lot of feelings. So, that's what, we'll do. I'll continue to do, as we move forward.
Yeah, Adrian, before the season started, you said you were going to build sort of your team up with JJ and Donnie. And did you, or maybe overestimate a little bit about how good they would be this year and how much they could help you? I'm curious about what your thoughts are about their performance this season.
I thought, Donnie coming back, JJ, returning as a senior year, I thought that was a good, building block and foundation. To have some people that have been here that kind of understand it. But the one thing, you don't know how the development will go. In Donnie's situation, he only played 13 or 14 games. So he was excited to get back, but he was still technically like a freshman. I think he really just, exceeded the freshman season.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear it through my mic.
He had to learn on the job, and then he had an injury.
I'll relay it to y'all.
Which, kind of set him back as well. So, and going into the season, you don't kind of expect
perfect.
And I thought JJ, for the most part, a lot of the stuff that he did for the most of the year was really more of him growing himself and being a complete player. And I know everyone in Syracuse was, used to him, putting up big numbers, but I thought he, grew as a complete player this year, and that was the challenge. And we knew that the numbers would go down because of the players that we were bringing in. And, I think, especially towards the end, players go through those types of slumps. Unfortunately, it happened at the end of the season. But, overall, I thought JJ grew on both sides of the floor, which, we were preaching. And, I give him a lot of credit, and I thank him for, trusting in that and trying to actually go out and do it.
Front left. Adrian, you and I spoke years ago about your desire to be a head coach, even though it hasn't gone necessarily how you wanted it to go these 3 years. What do you reflect on? What have you learned about yourself and the standard of Syracuse that you've talked about a lot?
Well, when I took this job, and I was obviously I went here, and I know the expectations that this job comes with. I was a player and part of it, and every day. That was what I tried to do, and in honoring that, with my players, with my staff, the way I coached, the thing about what I've learned is that it's a lot of different variables that, in today's world, that to get to that standard again, that you just can't overlook. It's just a reality. So I think that's the one thing that I learned. The landscape of college athletics has changed, and, to be where we want our standard to be, a lot of those things change. And I think that was the struggle, for me to try to adapt to that. And I think you got to have it, to be able to, compete nationally. It's different now, to be able to be relevant, top 25 and compete for tournaments and be in championships. The investment has to be there from top to bottom, and there's no way around it. And I think that was, me trying to keep up pace and us trying to keep up pace in that arena. But still, I don't shy away from, the job that I did. I'm harder on myself than anybody. I didn't get the results that we wanted. So I don't shy away from coaching, but things are just different now, and I think that's the one thing I learned the most while these first 3 years about trying to get the program back to the expectations and the standards.
Second row.
Hey, Adrian, Steve Reed from the AP. First off, do you know of any, are you supposed to meet with anybody? Do you know if there's any plans in the immediate future?
Well,
and then follow up quick.
Yeah, we'll have all our meetings tomorrow. So,
As you were talking about looking back, I mean, is there anything that you 3 years in, you look back and say, I wish I had done differently, or what maybe you learned that you would do differently again?
I don't know if we have enough time for that, but no. Again, I think the biggest thing is the amount of work and the amount of there's so many good programs and so many good teams, but the amount of work that you really have to every day put in, with your staff, with your staff, and trying to really articulate, the vision, the culture, really hammering that in every day. I think that's the one thing that, you hear about it, you got to do it, but to really actually do it every day, and I think that's the one thing that sticks out.
Or left. David Upman with The Athletic. You mentioned working through that development. Why do you feel like it didn't play out the way that you had hoped? And also, what do you expect about your future at Syracuse?
Well, again, it's a lot of things that, not a lot of things, but it's things that you typically, we were starting from a different place when I took the job. Obviously following behind Coach, that was, those big shoes to fill. And, like I said before, being able to, have continuity, I think that impacts, not being able to have continuity, with the things that happen. But, you just, with every team, every team is different, and obviously you have your idea of how you think that team, how you want that team to perform, but every team has its flaws, every team has its struggles, and I think every coach has to adapt to that as you go through the year. And I thought we tried to, adapt it to the best as possible. And I think, that's what you have to do as a coach, is try to adapt to your talent, and we tried that.
Take two more questions, second round. Coach, down here, Jim Boeheim is here today. If you are to speak to him afterwards, what will you talk about? And then before this game, what have you talked about leading up to this point? What has he been telling you?
I have not talked to Coach. I'm sure, if I talk to Coach, you said we got to rebound the ball better in the zone and find the shooters, right? Coach has been a great mentor for me as a coach and as a man. And, I think our conversations have always been about, him trying to give me different things to look at, different things to worry about, different things not to worry about, ignore different things. But he's just been a mentor and guiding me and as being a first-time coach and going through the process, and obviously the expectations at Syracuse because he had been here for so long. Whenever he did talk to me, it was really more advice about how to, handle different things in different situations.
Last question, second row.
Yeah, Adrian, you'd mentioned in Syracuse in the last press conference and this one too about variables that have happened over the last couple of years that you thought you could have handled better. Can you be a little more specific about what those variables might be?
I think to be able to, it's not an excuse and it's just the reality. Again, I own up to everything, but to be able to operate and to be able to do things, the NIL is a real thing. The transfer portal is a real thing. Those are the variables that I was referring to. Those are always going to be challenging. And again, if you fall a little short in those things, it makes it that much more difficult to be able to have the consistency that you want to have. Those variables, they matter, where in the old model, they didn't matter. They matter now. How you operate, how you, your budget for recruiting and retention, being able to, help your coaches, develop your coaches, the growing staffs, being able to have, all those things matter now. And, I think, those are the variables that I talk about that, probably before I took the job, I probably didn't put that much emphasis into it. But now, sitting here, and especially in the last 3 years, the way it has progressed, I don't know if anyone knew it was going to progress to this extent. And so anybody that says, "Oh, what do you mean?" Yeah, we knew it, but to this extent, and just being able to talk to my peers and other people in the business, I think that's the biggest thing.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
All right. That was Syracuse men's basketball head coach Adrian Autry, the post-game presser, brought to you by RomanoCars.com. Thanks to Pauly Sibilia for bringing in that feed virtually. Got a little bit of Matt Park talking about it at the end there. Somber. Only way I can describe it. There are the virtues and customs of a press conference after a season is over, especially one in the context of Adrian Autry, where it's weird because we all know that his season is over. It's a matter of, I guess, appeasing to the fans and figuring out when that season will be over. And so I'll take away just one quote for now, and then we'll go to a break and come back and talk more about exactly what that press conference sounded like for those on stream that maybe did not hear it. But the main thing is, he said, when asked, does he know anything about who he will be meeting with and what conversations he's set up to have, parentheses, obviously, regarding his potential firing, all he said is, we'll have all our meetings tomorrow. So fans, rest assured, despite the frustration, the next step starts tomorrow. So our heads can hit the pillow tonight knowing that this era is over and all we can do is wish for a better leader and a better representative of this program. And, I'm seeing the chat right now talking about how Syracuse gets all these hardworking people through tough times. And I certainly agree. I'm young. I haven't had to live the blue-collar life, the nose to the grindstone 9 to 5 up until I graduated college. But even when I was young, some of my fondest memories came from Syracuse basketball. And I've talked about it a little bit in the pre- and post shows throughout the season. So I'm certainly with the fans. It's tough. You can certainly hear the disappointment. But at the end of the day, Coach Autry does bleed orange. Sure, he maybe doesn't deserve to hear the criticism, but certainly should expect to hear it. And we're all disappointed. But at least it's done now. So with that being said, we'll step away for a moment, come back, talk more about kind of what went wrong and some takeaways from Adrian Autry's final press conference as the head coach of Syracuse men's basketball. I'm Kyle Marshak on ESPN Radio.
Catch the Syracuse basketball pregame prior to every game. Built by IKEA. We are the pulse of the orange. ESPN Radio 97.7 and 100.1.
Impressive from all angles, the exterior of the 2026 BMW X3 X-Drive 30 exudes
honestly, I'm not
power,
divided. For me, it's
expansive
clear.
surfaces, and dramatic curves combine to form its monolithic proportions. From the formidable front end to the imposing rear, lease the new 2026 BMW X3 X-Drive 30 at Burdick BMW for only $569 per month for 39 months with $51.69 due at signing. Cash down includes $36.75 down payment.
I don't know. It's just like, it is what it is at the end of the day. Now it's done.
$925 acquisition fee and zero security
at least
deposit.
It's done
Not
now.
all customers qualify for
I turn off the commercials. My bad, Polly. So it's good to know that it's over. But Philly brings up a very good point. At the end of the day, he got his one season with everything right. He recruited the right talent. He was backed by the university financially, and he still didn't get it done. As a matter of fact, he was way below expectations. I mean, at the very least, you have a winning season, and he couldn't do that. And he finished the season 3-15. So, yeah, I mean, in a way, I don't feel bad for the guy. It's tough. People in here haven't threatened him, but it's been on Twitter. Yeah. It's a fork in the road, man. Autry signed up for a job which he knew would be hard. He wasn't supported his first 2 years. I mean, I've been there. I've had jobs where I didn't feel supported. And it's like, it gets to a point where, like, it doesn't matter what you do, you will be wrong. So, it sucks. Really not much more to say about it. Just kind of blows for the guy. But at least we can move on to the next step. So, I'm going to be talking, like, potential head coaches after we break down the press conference in this next segment. Well, the Chief, I think part of why the talent he brought in was disappointing was his fault. I think objectively, on paper, he brought in talent that should have developed well. He didn't develop the talent. I think you give a different coach who's good at developing talent these players, and they would have been a bubble team at the least. That's my point. So I'm going to stand on the fact that he brought in the right talent. They're like, the reason everyone's upset is because he had the talent to make the NCAA tournament this year. I truly wholeheartedly believe that. Like, if you look at all the other teams in the ACC, talent development happens during the offseason. We are under more scrutiny than these coaches every day. We can be fired within minutes to months if we do something wrong or don't do enough. That's an interesting comparison. I don't know. I think it's harder to be a Syracuse men's basketball coach personally. He was but we all work hard jobs, you know. He was projected to finish 9th this year. How's that the right talent? Well, Cuse, if he finished 9th in the ACC, you're squarely on the bubble, which was the goal, was to at least have a shot, right? Because guess what? The 8th team, of the teams listed in the NCAA tournament, 8 of them are in. So by law of transitive properties, right, if you're the 8th best team tournament resume-wise, you make the tournament in the ACC. If you're 9th, 10th, or 11th, you're on the bubble. Because right now, Virginia Tech, Stanford, and Cal are all on the bubble. So hypothetically, you finish, quote-unquote, top 11 in tournament resumes in the ACC, you're at least looking at a real shot at making the tournament. He couldn't even do that. I think there are no excuses for that. I think with this roster, and the resources he had, he should have finished top 11 in tournament resumes per se. Not necessarily ACC standings, but top 11 in tournament resumes in the ACC, and he didn't do that. So I want to be clear, that's why I'm upset, because he should have made at least a real shot at the NCAA tournament this year. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter now, though. He's gone. He had a clear standard. He didn't hit it. It's done. So now we move on to the next conversation, you know? Struggle is getting the guys to play together and managing that group. Neither happened. Completely agree, Florida guy. How many employees get 3 years to fix a problem? Employees that are head basketball coaches? It's just a different world. Penultimate segment of the year for all Cuse Game Day men's basketball pre- and post-game shows. Kyle Marshak with you. Syracuse men's basketball season has turned its final page. They lose in the first round of the ACC tournament. They finished the season on a 6-game skid, and we just wrapped up head coach Adrian Autry's final post-game presser, brought to you by RomanoCars.com. So I want to recap all of the main things from that rather somber tone of a post-game presser. I'm just going to read off all of the quotes like a transcript. But the first and main one that everyone wants to know, did he get fired? When will he get fired? Nothing's official yet. Obviously, that is sooner rather than later. But he said, quote, we will have all of our meetings with parentheses, administration tomorrow. So rest assured, when your head hits the pillow tonight, you will likely wake up to news of Autry's firing, and we can all actually take that next step of thinking, okay, who's next? I'm Kyle Marshak with you on QSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio. Thank you guys for hanging out with me all season. It's been tough. I just did the math. When I picked this job up after my good friend Giovanni Heater, who's down in Texas doing his thing now, since then they've gone 3-12. So I'm sorry. How about instead of being mad at Autry, you guys get mad at me because I'm leaving soon anyways. Let's just blame it on me. I picked up the job. They lost 2 straight games. They got a couple of wins. They lost a bunch more games. They got 1 win, and then they lost a bunch of more games. And since I got here, they went 3-12. Pretty bad. So let's just blame it on me. We'll head to Vito and Clay in a second, but to look back at the rest of the quotes from the press conference, he said, the one thing I'll say in this group in particular is it was a group we put together with hopes of developing their talent, quote unquote, on the job, which I was talking about off the air. Like, Philly, for example, a common name in the chat, he was saying you develop during the offseason, which is obviously true. That's where most of the work is done. But he was picking up a lot of guys from the portal because he finally got money this year. I don't want to take away from the fact that Autry did not do a good enough job. At the end of the day, I will die on the hill that he had the talent to at least finish top 11 in NCAA tournament resumes in the ACC. I'm not saying in the standings. in NCAA tournament resumes. Why do I say that? Well, Syracuse was projected 9th in the ACC preseason poll. They obviously finished 14th, so they massively undershot their projection. But if they finished 9th in the ACC, they would be at the equivalent of an NCAA tournament resume as, I don't know, somewhere in between SMU and Virginia Tech, which are both just inside and just outside the bubble, respectively. Because there are 8 teams in the NCAA tournament right now from the ACC. So, yeah, he tried to develop talent on the job. I'll give him that. At the end of the day, the talent got worse with him, and that's why they didn't come even close to their projection. Again, my point being, they came close to their projection. They probably would be on the bubble right now, and we'd all be a little less upset. He said, quote, even some of our older guys didn't play a ton at their other schools. I thought we had a group that could push through that issue. Obviously not. He went on to say, we always think about our future after the season ends. A lot of emotions, a lot of feelings. I'll continue to feel these things out as we move forward. All of the things that say my career here is done without saying my career here is done. He talked about JJ, said he thought he actually became a more complete player this year. I think that's a little bit of coach talk, not to be too critical of him. He said he grew on the defensive side of the ball. I'll agree with him on that. I think there are some personal things going on with JJ between the shoulder and the wrist issues and maybe some mental stuff that made his shot a lot worse this year. So it's tough to see that too. Another niche of this era of Syracuse basketball that was really disappointing was bringing in a guy who was a young, promising talent from the area and just not panning out. But you can give Autry the credit that he does bleed orange. He said, when I took this job, I decided to honor this job every day with the way I coached. There's a lot of different variables to reach a certain standard. But the landscape of college athletics has changed, and I did not meet that standard. He said to be able to be a top 25 team, to compete in tournaments and championships, there's got to be a lot of support from top to bottom. I'll give him that too. Red was not a good coach, but he also didn't have the right support until year 3. And that's why we've reached this conclusion that 3 years was the right call, because he got all the support he could have this year and just did not develop the talent enough. Final few quotes from him. He said, I'm harder on myself than anybody, so I don't shy away from coaching. I want to do what I can for this program to get them back to prominence. I wish we input and hammered in the culture more over the 3 years. Being able to have the continuity in this roster impacts everything. And then he talked about Boeheim a little bit. He was asked about Boeheim. And at least he was able to kind of laugh about things. He said, if I talked to Coach Boeheim right now, he would tell us we need to rebound better in the zone. But I think that's kind of a fitting note to end on there, right? Talking about what Boeheim would do. Because we certainly want to end up with a coach, I guess, akin to a young Boeheim next. Kind of an obvious statement, but just my open thoughts there. All right, so let's go back to the Massage Envy hotlines. Vito and Clay has been waiting patiently. What's going on, Vito?
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at this season, when you go back to that Houston game, it's a team full of hope at that point. You know, there's no, I mean, yeah, they played the summer, but you get to the game situations and, they're at a clean slate at that point. And that's a team that fought hard, that believed. And as the season wore on, that belief slowly faded away. And that I blame the coaches for. In the pregame, when Boeheim was on the ACC network with the other guys there, they brought the Florida State basketball coach on, Luke Laux. And I just love what that guy had to say. That's a real coach right there. You know, they got blown out by 40 points. I don't remember which team he said it was. But he said that they brought the whole team up to his office, and they were there until 4:30 a.m. watching the game, pointing everything out that went wrong. And they said, we're going to fix all this. We have a plan. We're going to fix it all. I don't get that impression from Autry. I don't get that. No, not at all. And that's the kind of coach that this program needs, someone with heart. Not that he doesn't have heart. He bleeds orange, obviously. I just don't think he has the coaching pedigree in him like a guy like that. And I hope that this program finds a coach like that. It needs it. We deserve it as a fan base. But as far as the game itself, a surprising stat stuck out to me that Syracuse scored 17 fast break points to their 2, which emphasized the point that they just destroyed us in the paint. Yeah. It wasn't by a lot. It was 38-30. but they were automatic in the paint, and that's what won them the game, in combination with the fact that Syracuse shot 9 for 33 from three, and they shot. It didn't matter what they shot from three. They were 11 for. I think Syracuse was 9 for 34. They were 11 for 33. That many threes, and I said it all season long. I called the coach show with Autry. I said I would like to see. I was excited when Kings picked Syracuse. He looks like a great 3-point shooter that this program really needs, and he finally started hitting it. But we didn't have enough of that from the roster that we needed. I mean, Betsy needed to be better from three. They just don't have the outside shooting to overcome what teams like SMU could do to us in the paint. And that's my last point, is roster construction. I mean, how many of these people in the portal are they striking out with, whether it's they don't want to come here, or they're not given enough money? But you had to know that, I mean, Kyle was an unknown. But what if he wasn't as good as he was this year? It would have been even worse. You know, they have like this I can't remember his name, Silhouette or something on Pitt. Something.
Cialepa.
Cialepa. Just someone like that, someone that has size and that can defend the paint, stop guys like the 7-footer on SMU. The roster construction is horrible, and that's what did us in as well. So I'm hoping for the best, and let's hope I'm hoping for Hodgson. We'll see what happens.
All right, Vito. I really appreciate you for calling in all season, and stay warm and take care, brother.
Yeah, I didn't know you were leaving, so best of luck to you, buddy.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. All right, Vito. Take care.
Yep. You too. Bye.
Man, I love it when you guys call in, and kind of a weird melancholic feeling surrounding all of this. Crazy, crazy time in everybody's lives right now, because if you told me before I went off to school, not to make it about myself, you told me before I went off to school back in 2021, hey, when you come back, you're going to be pre- and post-host for Syracuse men's basketball games, but Syracuse is going to be really bad. I'd tell you, weird. They had a one-off year where they were like a losing team, actually. Like they had their first losing season in a while. And then this hypothetical being says, no, actually, that was their third losing season in the past 5 years. I'd be like, what? What the hell happened? But that's where we've gotten. So when you put it in that hypothetical sense, it's crazy. It's just straight up flabbergasting that we have gotten to this point. But I bring back my unnatural optimism, and I tell everyone listening and who's listened all year long, as critical and as whiny as I can be about this team, at least there is a silver lining, and it's that this season is over, and Syracuse University, not just Syracuse men's basketball, Syracuse University is hitting the hard reset button. They removed the motherboard and switched it out with a completely different one. They got a new chancellor who is athletic-minded. They are going to hire a new AD any day now. Head coach Adrian Autry will be fired tomorrow. And while I may be going on to a different place and nobody cares about that, at least I can look back at my hometown from afar and say, look at them. Moving on to bigger and better ways, hopefully. But of course, that brings me to what I want to talk about, which is the upcoming coaching carousel. What are the names floating around? I think we all know what coaches could end up in Adrian Autry's seat next year. So I tell you guys to call in next segment and tell me what you want to see in terms of the coaches available. 315-437-7644. What can we expect out of these coaches? Can they generate money? If we ain't talking money, you're not talking my language, right? Even though I'm a broke, recently graduated college kid. So that's what we're talking about next. Everyone's favorite thing, money and coaches, coming up on ESPN Radio. You're listening to the Burdick Toyota Postgame Show on ESPN Syracuse and CuseSportsTalk.com. Kyle, let's examine this NIL situation. First, we know the money was there in college basketball. We can assume most of that money flowed to the schools, conferences, in the NCAA. So now we need to know where the money was coming from and tap into that. I get your line of logic there. Disagree. Needed someone with more beef in the paint, I guarantee you. Yes, the coaches brought the whole team up into the offices. He'll be on the air for GMAC's run in the ACC tournament. or NCAA tournament, right? That'd be cool. I mean, I'll be covering an NCAA tournament-bound Arkansas Razorbacks team. Well, actually, I won't. I don't get there until, I don't start working until April 6th. I don't debut on air until late April. I refuse to engage in any discussion about basketball if the other person is actually claiming Will Kyle wasn't a stud all season. Philly, I agree with you. I think William Kyle played his role. I know, Philly, you and I disagreed on like what type of role Donnie should have played, whether or not he should have became a passer and stuff. I guess when you and I talked about that, I kind of misworded. Like, I wasn't asking him to be an elite passer, but I feel like he could have been a lot more dynamic on ball because he worked himself into a lot of ISO, like back to the basket situations that dwindled down a lot of possessions late in game during this losing streak. And I would have liked him to have more wherewithal to kick out or find someone cutting, which it's other people's fault too, not moving off ball, than kind of becoming stagnant. Kyle, Syracuse needed a true center. Yeah. Syracuse hasn't had a real center for multiple years in a row in a long time. Like, they had Eddie Lampkin. You know, he was a real center. Before that, I can't really remember. You know, Naheem McLeod didn't play actual minutes because he was too big. The last real consistent center I can think of, I don't know, Rakeem Christmas, if you want to count that. Yeah, Rakeem Christmas, Paulie and I on the same page. Jesse Edwards, yeah, he had a couple good seasons. Didn't he have a couple injury bugs, though? He wasn't nearly as good as Rakeem Christmas. Why do people forget about Jesse? It felt like his stint was short. Yeah. So William Kyle, well, he doesn't remind me of Merrick Dolezaj at all. They were completely different players. But William Kyle was the same situation as Merrick Dolezaj, where they played center because they were just the best option. But Merrick Dolezaj was really a true 3 or 4 at his best. You know, William Kyle is a true 4, just not a shooting 4. I mean, he was underskilled, just super athletic, which is why I liked him at the 5. But, you know, not strong enough. We didn't rebound good enough. We didn't have a real big man in the paint. Yeah, Jesse's not bad. Will Kyle's a center. He doesn't have the skill set for a 5. I love Dolezaj. Yeah, I remember Dolezaj. I miss Dolezaj. Paul, I can't remember. How many breaks have I taken? Is this my last segment coming up? Okay. No, we can work with 2. Yeah. Does SMU score at will like they did? Yes, because he didn't have any other help in the paint. I guess what I'm saying about William Kyle is he was a stud for what he could do because he's not a real center. Thanks, JH. I appreciate that. Just because Will is 6'9" doesn't mean he's a 4. Oh, well. Okay, I get what you're saying. I mean, yeah, I guess like skill set wise, why isn't Kyle a real center? I mean, yeah, I mean, I just disagree with you, Philly. I just think he was undersized, not because of his height, but because of his frame. If he were fuller, I think he would have been a better, like, finisher at the rim. Like, he needed to develop a better touch around the rim, better back to the basket play, which he never had. He was a slasher. Well, not a slasher, but a finisher, you know? Segment 3 of the Burdick BMW postgame show. Season over. Syracuse men's basketball finishes on a low note in the first round of the ACC tournament. They were given a puncher's chance against 11 seed SMU, a team they beat at home a month ago. Actually, the team that they last won against back on Valentine's Day. Here we are on March 10th. Syracuse, after that win at home against SMU, continued to go on a 5-game losing streak to finish the regular season. And then they lose in the first round of the ACC tournament, 86-69. So we've kind of talked about everything already here in this post-game show. We broke down what happened in the game very briefly. I don't really think that matters too much anymore. And then we went to what everyone wants to talk about. What's next for Syracuse basketball? There's a lot of boxes to check. And that's what I want to talk about next. And we'll put this under the category of how to improve the team. Brought to you by Auburn Community Hospital. Auburn Community Hospital is improving their team. Apply today at auburnhospital.org. So, with that being said, what's the main thing to do to improve this team? Well, of course, it starts at the top. You get a new coach. Adrian Autry's postgame presser, brought to you by RomanoCars.com, has already occurred. And he talked about a lot of things. But the main thing, of course, that everyone wants to know is that he will have his meetings with administration tomorrow. So in all likelihood, when we wake up tomorrow morning, you will know for sure that they have moved on from head coach Adrian Autry after a third year that was pivotal to his contract and to his career, because they finally gave him what is next on how do we improve the team. They got him his money. They finally supported him at least to an average level in the ACC financially and NIL, and he still couldn't quite develop the talent that he brought in, even though he did recruit 2 top 100 5-star players in Kyan Anthony and Sadiq White. So that brings me to my final point of how do we improve the team. It's to retain talent for next year. These are all of the non-seniors on the roster that I think all of us would like to see come back to some capacity. Of course, Kyan Anthony and Sadiq White. I think Sadiq White is the most important one. Sophomore Donnie Freeman, I put a question mark next to, because he's Donnie Freeman. He's a good player, earned all ACC honorable mention, had his ups and downs throughout this season, but I think as kind of that appointed star or main scorer of this team, showed the most frustration and is certainly the best raw talent on this team. So whether or not he comes back to Syracuse next year, I don't know. I think his draft stock is now non-existent. But I don't think it's a loss if Donnie Freeman comes back next year. My only redundancy, my only take back on Donnie Freeman is, although he's a good player, he took away from the team basketball that Syracuse flashed when they were playing their best basketball. I think we all had really high hopes, even though they lost 3 consecutive games in the Players Era tournament out in Vegas, because they started by going to double overtime with number 3 Houston, and they played great team basketball that day. Who was not on the court? Donnie Freeman. All of their best team basketball efforts, unfortunately, were without Donnie Freeman. So when you look at Donnie, it's tough, and he has been an enigma and an oxymoron to Cuse basketball all season, because statistically, he's the best player on the floor. But chemically, he unstabilized the team the most, if that's the right way to phrase it. He was just a piece that didn't quite fit in the puzzle. But there are other guys that had unique skill sets that were weird too. Like Tyler Betsy, his skill set's very clear. He's a 3-and-D guy. Just a sophomore. Do you guys want Tyler Betsy to return? Tell me what players you want to retain, despite the changing of the guards next year. 315-437-7644 or 315-4ESPN44. Kyle Marshak hanging out with you for the next 15 minutes in the waning minutes of my final postgame show with y'all on QSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio. For those listening out in Utica, Rome on 96.5 FM, or out here, of course, in the great 315, 97.7, 100.1 FM. Thank you guys for tuning in all season long. I took over about midway, maybe a little bit before midway, ACC play for my good buddy Giovanni Heater. And, man, it's been tough. Since I took over, 3-12 Syracuse is. So like I joked about in the last segment, you guys want to be angry, just be angry at me. You can blame it on me. Because this team has struggled mightily in the back 2/3 of the ACC schedule. So we've kind of gotten all the frustrations out of the way regarding Coach Autry, especially when it comes to the talent he brought in and his inability to develop them, but also a lot of the coaching mistakes. So when we go back to this game in particular, I want to talk about some more head-scratching issues surrounding Adrian Autry when reflecting on what went wrong. And I think overall, it's fair to say that he just didn't have the coaching chops, because he flashed a zone in the first half that worked very well. +3 was the scoring margin with the zone in the first half, it seemed. It was very close. At halftime, Syracuse was down 1 point. For some inexplicable reason, which people have talked about in the chat a little bit today on Twitch. Again, you guys can watch it, QSportsTalk.com on Twitch and YouTube. For some inexplicable reason, he stopped using the zone in the second half. And we've seen him do that a lot. Against Duke, both times, they got embarrassed against Duke and UNC. Both teams were very strong scorers, but both teams, one weakness scoring-wise, they were average at best at three-point shooting because they were both so big. Because they didn't need to have three-point shooting. And what did Autry do to force them to shoot threes? Absolutely nothing. I mean, come on, guys. We all know the deal with the 2-3 zone, right? It's designed to force teams to shoot threes. It was the one weird, wacky tool that a coach at Syracuse had an excuse to use just for S's and G's. And he didn't use it against teams that weren't that good at shooting threes. Very, very odd. So that's my one final nitpick on Coach Autry and his inability to make adjustments or make reads in game. Second half, didn't flash the zone. They get blown out after being down 1 at halftime. All right, let's go back to the Massage Envy hotlines. My good friend Dro in Clay has been waiting patiently. Dro, give me your worst, brother.
Hey, man, it was definitely a rough season. Glad it's going to be over. I think everyone's, panicking about once Autry leaving, this, that, the other thing. We all know that it's going to happen tomorrow. And I told everyone, you just got to be patient. And that's pretty much really what it just came down to. You just have to be patient. And it's going to happen tomorrow. And we're going to know exactly what's going on. I think our next coach is I think flash the zone. They get blown out after being. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, you got me?
I thought I lost you there.
Yeah. No, I heard the audio in the background. I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah. Brian Hodgson will be our next coach.
Okay, so you're taking Brian Hodgson?
1 second.
All good.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, so I'm back. So I think Brian Hodgson will be our next coach. And I think the university has to be serious about this. Like we there's no Boeheim family tree coaches. We need to go get Brian Hodgson. And all signs from people I've heard from, that's going to be the guy.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that's tough is it's either Syracuse outbids a couple other competitive teams for Brian Hodgson, who's clearly the number 2 coach in this upcoming carousel, or they probably just have to go with Mike Hopkins. I guess it's up to the fan base. Is Mike Hopkins conceding defeat and just going with the next best option? Like, should they go with a coach that's already proven to take teams to the NCAA tournament? Should they go with a coach that's still hot and ready? Like an important game that people are going to watch tonight is the MAC championship. Is there like a world for you where if Siena wins the MAC championship against Merrimack, that then you start talking about Jerry McNamara?
I don't think yet. I love Jerry. I don't think yet. No, I don't. We want to be serious here. We need to get Brian Hodgson. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna. It's been too much frustration. I think it's gonna be too much backlash if you get a banned family tree guy. Boeheim put this program where it is because there's stubbornness and selflessness to not retire and play daddy ball. And this is why we are where we are. And I'm frustrated with it. So no, we need to go outside the family. I mean, if Jerry becomes next head coach Mike Hopkins, I'll support him. Yes, but I'll be disappointed. We need to go outside the family. University needs to stop being cheap and hire the right guy. That's it. Mm-hmm. And get us back to the NCAA tournament.
I want. Yeah, you and I are on the same page.
Would agree too.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page because we have people in the chat that are saying, Michael Antonio, for example, who I'm not saying this is like his opinion specifically, but he's saying it feels weird that they may go outside the Boeheim line, which I absolutely agree with. But I think you and I are on the same page. What the brand of basketball is at Syracuse is not Boeheim basketball. It is winning basketball. So how do they get back to playing winning basketball? It's by getting the best coach, right?
Exactly.
So
that's the bottom line.
Yeah, I guess that's what I would usher into the minds of the fan base right now. Would you rather risk it and stay in family and have Boeheim brand basketball, or would you just rather go get the best coach, period, point blank, no questions about it? And I agree with you. The best coach they can get. The best coach they can get is Hodgson.
Yep, he wants to be here. You got to get him. It has to happen. That's it.
Yeah.
It has to happen. So listen, I wish you the best of luck. We're going to miss you.
Yeah. I appreciate it. We'll keep in touch. I mean, I literally played basketball with your son like the other day. I'll probably play with him again next week. So.
Yeah. So we'll stay in touch and definitely. I watched you grow up. It's great to see you doing good things. You've come a long way from kindergarten, or actually no, come a long way from preschool, man.
Shoot, yeah.
Sometimes, listen, man, and people probably don't understand this. I used to drive you sometimes to rotate with your parents and take you, your brother, and my son to preschool in the back of a van and had to buckle up your knuckleheads and car seats. So look how far we've come.
Oh, yeah, with me and my twin brother, Brady. That must have been a pain in the ass.
No comment. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad to see you doing well, and obviously we'll definitely be in touch.
Thank you. Thank you for reaching out, Dro, okay? We'll keep in touch.
Absolutely, man.
All right.
Take care, buddy.
Take care. Dro and Clay, one of my favorite callers. Well, he kind of spilled the story right there. I've known his son since I was, literally in diapers. I was in diapers for a while. No one cares. I'll be in my diaper tomorrow, peeing my pants, waiting to figure out when they're going to fire head coach Autry. All right, so we've talked about pretty much everything regarding Autry, and now we've opened up the floodgates to what's next for Syracuse. I've got one small tidbit for why a coach coming in to Adrian Autry's position next year should already be in college basketball currently, a.k.a. not Mike Hopkins. You guys will find out next in the final segment of the Burdick BMW postgame show for Syracuse men's basketball in the 2025-26 campaign. You're listening to ESPN Radio. Stewart and McDaniels went under 500. R.I.P. Kyle G. O'Brien, Brent, Jordan, Live on Polly, Peter Pan. Who's Peter Pan? I don't really get the joke. Oh, is that Stevie? Does Steve really look like Peter Pan? I am going to Arkansas. Going to Fayetteville, where the University of Arkansas is. Hard to recruit to. Steve is the techie rancher lookalike. Well, if you guys want to call in and kind of punctuate this final conversation, I'm going to be talking about potential head coaches for real this time. 315-437-7644. If they don't get support dollars they'll need, it won't matter either way. McDaniels is from Washington. We didn't recruit him. Boeheim was not the coach. You think Boeheim had a hand in the hiring of Autry? Look at how Boeheim is blah, 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 blah. 1 year got extremely tough after that. He was 3,000 miles away from all of his connections, and it's really difficult. Yeah. Excuse me. Really expensive, too, because they always want plane tickets. Life is expensive, man. That's another random thing that I'm realizing too. Like, looking at moving to Fayetteville, Arkansas. My other job option, not that it's about me, was Hawaii. Like, no wonder schools are so much more successful when they're in like a mid-sized college town. Like, if you really look at it, there's not that many Power 4 schools that are in like, let's say, top 20 or top 30 metro market sizes. Alabama's like in kind of a mid-sized metro that conglomerates into a big market, but like Fayetteville's market size, barely top 100. College Station is its own market. It's not that huge. Blacksburg, Virginia doesn't even have like its own market name. It's just in the Roanoke, Virginia market. Like a lot of these successful schools, they work out because there's a little bit of that buffer financially because it's just cheaper to be in that area. Like, that's why it impresses me so much that with, like, the tuition these kids have to pay and cover in, like, schools like St. John's in the city or Miami is a good example. It's like, man, how they do that, they must generate a ton of money.
It's the Burdick Lexus and Burdick BMW postgame show.
For one final time on the 2025-26 campaign for Syracuse men's basketball, I say hello from the studio in downtown Syracuse on the Burdick BMW postgame show. Kyle Marshak, I've been with you for the back half of this disappointing season for Syracuse, and they lose and finish their season with a first-round exit at the hands of 11-seed SMU in the ACC tournament. Final score, 86-69. Kyle Marshak with you on QSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio. One final time, we break things down and kind of look back and rear our ugly heads at what went wrong in a season where Syracuse was 12-5, 3-1 in the ACC, projected in the quote-unquote work-to-do category in bracketology, and now they end up here. 2 games below 500 and a first-round beating in the conference tournament. Once again, Syracuse unable to win in the ACC tournament. They still have not won back-to-back games in the ACC tournament. When will the Orange turn their tide? Well, it starts with the firing of Adrian Autry tomorrow, which we know is pretty much a certainty after his post-game presser where he said he is meeting with administration tomorrow. So with that, we move on to the final conversation, the coaching carousel. I said before the segment, there's one small thing with this upcoming coaching hire that I think may help. Is it everything? No, but let's talk about it. Here are my recipes to success, my ingredients to success for whoever this next coach will be. Some of them are redundant. Can they coach? Are they able to develop talent? Are they a proven bright mind in college basketball? And that's 1. 2, are they a proven recruiter? 3, can they or will they generate revenue, or will Syracuse provide them with the right funding? Those are the 3 main keys to success. If there were a key to success labeled 3B, it would be this. Can they bring talent from their previous place with them? Now that, in my opinion, isn't the biggest deal in the world, but it would certainly kickstart Syracuse basketball to what people want for next year. Like the Pat Kelsey example in Louisville or the Will Wade example in Raleigh. Can you bring in a coach and immediately go back to the NCAA tournament? It's hard, but you got to do it with a mid-major coach who already has players ready to join the roster, which brings me to this final note on the upcoming coaching carousel. We've listed all of the names. One thing that was brought up in the Twitch chat on QSportsTalk.com that I really appreciated was, hey, there might be a little bit of shuffling that we won't realize too, because right now all we know is pretty much Providence, LSU, Arizona State opening up, right? And when you look at it from that perspective, Oklahoma too, you would say, yeah, Oklahoma and LSU definitely have more money, and Providence maybe on paper looks as attractive, if not slightly better than Syracuse. So if Brian Hodgson is the goal in this coaching carousel, you would probably say, okay, well, now you're competing with, let's say Josh Schertz, who's clearly the cream of the crop, goes to LSU, for example. Now you're competing with Oklahoma, Providence, and Arizona State in recruiting Brian Hodgson, who is now the bachelor-to-be, if you will. Do they have the money to do that? I don't know. A school like Providence, for example, you might think, nah, there's no way they can out-recruit a coach than over Syracuse. But my rebuttal would be, well, first of all, Providence is in the Big East, good conference, Power 5, if you will. But second of all, Providence isn't a football school. So all of their money's going to basketball. Hell yeah, they have the money. And then you compete with other big schools like Oklahoma and LSU. My point being, that's why I believe it's incredibly likely Mike Hopkins could be the coach next year. Because the odds of Syracuse out-recruiting or out-pocketing LSU or Oklahoma are slim to none. But then again, Brian Hodgson spent time in Buffalo, knows the area, appreciates and reveres Syracuse basketball's history. But he's also working down there in the South. Not too far of a hike out there to Baton Rouge. Maybe a little bit more of a hike out there to Oklahoma. So we look at the coaching carousel as a whole. Will Will Wade leave NC State to go back to LSU? That's certainly possible. He's done good at NC State. He spent 6 seasons at LSU, but only left because of recruiting violations. That's behind him now. He took his little pit stop at McNeese State. He's back at Power 4 basketball. He can take that job and go back to LSU. If that happens, well, now Josh Schertz is going to an Oklahoma, a Providence. Maybe that actually helps Syracuse's case, because then the only real jobs left are whatever that third school left is and Syracuse. So that brings us to the next option. Josh Schertz goes to whatever the next best option is. Maybe it's NC State, because that could open up. And then Brian Hodgson from South Florida. He will not play as the 1 seed in the ACC or AAC tournament until March 14th. So we don't even know if this Hodgson guy will make the NCAA tournament, which is clearly a part of our criteria as a fan base. And so then you look at the next best option, which is Casey Alexander of Belmont, in my opinion. He earned the 1 seed in the Missouri Valley tournament, and then he lost in the quarterfinal round. It's the 7th straight 20-plus win season at Belmont, but he just lost in the Missouri Valley Conference for the 7th straight year. So that takes a little bit away from another, let's say, option B, if you will. So then it brings us back to the in-family conversation. If they can't get Hodgson and they don't think Casey Alexander or Tony Skinn is good enough, well, then you look back at Jerry McNamara and Mike Hopkins. And so the final storyline, Mike Hopkins' idea and profile is set. He's in NBA basketball working in player development, so we know he can recruit and develop players, but he didn't bring a team to the NCAA tournament repeatedly when he was in college basketball, just 1 of 7 years at Washington. So I ask you guys this, and again, you can call in over the next few minutes as we wrap up shop here, 315-437-7644. Does that make Jerry McNamara the best option? Because 3-seed Siena plays in the 1-seed Merrimack in the MAAC championship tournament tonight, or the MAC championship tonight, if you want to just call it the MAC. So I ask you guys this. If you guys don't like Mike Hopkins because he only made it 1 out of 7 years with Washington, if we can't get Josh Schertz or Brian Hodgson, if you don't like Casey Alexander or Tony Skinn because they didn't take their team to the NCAA tournament, even though they've proven to win year after year, they just can't crack that final standard of winning the tournament, is Jerry McNamara the best option left? I think the fan base has been pretty split on that. I think, the track record and the gut feeling and the inside sources say, Mike Hopkins was kind of skipped over and he's been outside of college basketball, so you can't really hold, his time spent with Washington against him too much because he's bringing in a real NBA pedigree and player development. Maybe he's the best option. Or are you on the side of Jerry McNamara, who, if Siena wins tonight against Merrimack, will go to the NCAA tournament in Jerry McNamara's just third year of being a head coach. Is that too much inexperience? So my final note being Syracuse is kind of screwed. Am I crazy to say that? If Syracuse generated a decent enough money, a competitive amount of money, they wouldn't even really have great options to recruit other than Brian Hodgson. So the pressure's on because Syracuse is not going to get the perfect coach, but they can certainly get the best coach that they can afford. Whether or not that's Mike Hopkins, Jerry McNamara, or Brian Hodgson, we do not know. I'm in the ball club of recruit the best coach. The brand of Syracuse basketball is to win. It is not to win with someone from Syracuse. It is just to win. That's my final takeaway. So with that, I do like Jerry McNamara and Brian Hodgson because they bring players with them. Jerry McNamara would bring over, I'd say, 3 players who could actually translate to getting minutes and being relatively playable in the ACC. Everyone knows Gavin Doty, sophomore guard, 17.7 points, 7 rebounds. I think he would be an instant injection to the lineup. And then he has 2 young players that could develop into bright talents. A big maybe is freshman forward Francis Folafak, 11.2 points per game, 6'7", maybe a little undersized, maybe turns into more of a pure 3 or 4 type of guy. But he also has a 4-star recruit from Chittenango coming out to Siena, Ryan Mesh. If he brings over those 3 players, does that kickstart Syracuse back to at least being competitive in the ACC? If he also recruits some players and gets some NIL support? Or do you look at the talent that Brian Hodgson could bring over? He has 5 different scorers in double figures. Unfortunately, 3 of them are seniors. The 2 non-seniors that would come over with him, junior guard Wes Ennis, 16.5 points per game, the team's leading scorer, 40% field goal shooter, 37.4% from 3, and sophomore guard CJ Brown off the bench, 11.4 points per game, leads the team with 5 assists, also gets 4 rebounds. 2 young players that could come over and instantly make an impact. But it's up to you guys. Do you think any of these players make an instant impact? Do they not translate to the ACC? Is it important to you to bring over a mid-major coach who has a little bit of talent to bring with him? Tough to say. It's been a long season, guys. Just my final food for thought on what's next for Syracuse basketball. But that first step isn't taken until this rumor about a new AD becomes true. And then after that, what can this AD do to bring in the best coach possible? And that's up to the donors, how much money they can generate to hire a high-level head coach who can recruit, who can develop talent, who can maybe generate his own revenue, who's clearly a bright mind in college basketball. It worked with Pat Kelsey. So I'll leave you guys with that. It worked with Pat Kelsey. It worked for Will Wade. What can Syracuse do to make it work for them? And that's up to y'all to figure out. It's been a blessing hanging out with you guys the back end of the season. It's been a rough season. I appreciate your guys' kindness all year long, just calling in, interacting, leaving it all out on the table. I've tried my best, certainly, to tell the story of this team before and after every game. And it can be difficult, but it's not woe is me. Nobody cares about the pre and post toast. I've had an awesome job. Guys, I was born and raised in Syracuse, New York. Some of my fondest memories were spent in my basement watching John Gillen hit a buzzer beater and then hugging my dad, watching Tyler Ennis hit that buzzer beater against Pitt, watching Tyus Battle hit that corner 3 on a kick out from Tyler Lydon to win on the road in buzzer-beating fashion against Clemson. Malachi Richardson popping off and making it to the Final Four in that upset against Virginia as a 10 seed. Now, how long will it be until they get back to that? I'm not sure, but I certainly pray for it. And I appreciate you guys and your fandom and your passion all year long. So for one final time, I thank you guys for tuning in on QSportsDoc.com and ESPN Radio. I'm Kyle Marshak. This is the last time that I'll be on air at ESPN Radio. I move on to Arkansas. I'll be taking over a sports reporting position in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So if you guys are interested in keeping tabs on the Razorbacks, a team that will make the tournament and have some fun, maybe in March Madness as a top 25 team, you can follow 5 News Online on Instagram. And I'll say hi to Calipari for you guys. How about that? Go Razorbacks, but more importantly, go Orange. I bleed orange. I love Syracuse. I'll miss the 315. And thank you guys for helping me out all year long. One final farewell, and thank you for tuning in all season long. I'll see you guys soon on ESPN Radio.
This